we are just going to give a couple of minutes for people to join and then we'll start. Okay, just waiting for a couple of minutes to let people join. Who's got their Outlook open? Oh, it might be me actually. Okay, well, I'll just give it a couple of minutes. Let's. I'll do some instructions, and then while people find their way here. Good evening. I'm David Charlesworth. I'm Communications Manager here at the Greater Cambridge Partnership. Waterbeach Cambridge is one of the projects that I run. I work on. I'll be chairing tonight's online session. As with other sessions, this has been recorded and will be available on the YouTube our YouTube channel afterwards for you who want to review it. I'm joined by a number of colleagues here tonight, and this is part of the consultation engagement on the Waterbeach to Cambridge preferred route options, where there's two elements to it that we're going to run through tonight, which is we're going to run through where we are in terms of the two preferred route options for a busway and active travel route between Waterbeach and Cambridge, and also highlight the three options we're looking at for an additional park and ride site at Waterbeach on and around the A10. I'm joined by colleague Paul van der Balk, who's the project manager for Waterbeach to Cambridge, and Amy Barnett, who has been the technical lead from our transport consultants Atkins. We have also James and Isabel in support, who are available to help run the meeting tonight. Amy's got a presentation that we're going to run through, and then once we've done that, we're happy to answer questions. I will take people, if you put your yellow hand up, and I'll always take those first over people who put questions in the chat. But if you also want to ask questions via the chat, we'll take those as well. Just to say that obviously we realise there's some very strongly held views about this and other projects at the moment that we're working on, but I think if we can all observe the normal rules of engagement in terms of professional and courteous interactions, then we can all have a very useful session. So on that note, I think I'm ready to hand over to Amy, if you want to start your presentation.
Thanks, David. I'll just share my screen.
Thanks very much.
Does that come through?
Yes, I can see that.
Brilliant, thank you. So first of all, the following slides provide an overview of the route options that are being consulted on for the busway element of the consultation, as well as the associated active travel improvements. So the overall project aim is to deliver a new high quality segregated public transport route between Waterbeach and Cambridge. The route will also facilitate new infrastructure for active travel and link with routes that are already in development. Providing these better public transport and active travel connections will connect homes with places of work and study and make sustainable journeys more attractive, leading to improved air quality. To develop the options for the project, we've been through a 4-step process. Step 1 consisted of establishing the need for a new public transport scheme on the corridor. A study into the future of the A10 in 2018 found that the road suffers from significant congestion during rush hours, particularly at the Cambridge end. This congestion will only get worse once the new town is built. Key to solving this congestion would be building a new segregated public transport scheme between Waterbeach and Cambridge, which would help instill sustainable travel habits from the start. In 2019, as part of Step 2, we came up with a long list of options for a new public transport scheme. We held workshops with stakeholders and a 4-week online engagement period so that the public and stakeholders could share their views on the project in its early stages. Together with technical work, the outcomes of the engagement fed into a long list of over 50 possible routes for the new scheme. Options were sifted and assessed, which resulted in some options being discounted. This process resulted in the creation of 4 broad corridors that the busway could use: a western corridor, a central corridor, an A10 corridor, and an eastern corridor. Those 4 corridors are shown on the plan on the left-hand side of the screen, and in autumn 2020 we ran a public consultation for the route for a new busway which presented the 4 corridors for feedback. As part of step 3, feedback from the public during the consultation showed that over half of respondents supported the proposal to build a new busway between Waterbeach, Newtown and Cambridge. However, the route options that ran through Waterbeach Village were strongly opposed due to proximity to housing and the perceived impact on the local community. In 2021, following further technical work, a shortlist of 2 of the 4 options were selected. They were the western option, and following feedback from the public, a revised version of the central option, and they're the 2 options you can see on the right-hand side of the screen here. As part of step 4, to develop the options further, in 2022, we held more stakeholder workshops on the details of these 2 options. Together with stakeholder feedback, further technical work was undertaken to identify 3 specific routes within each corridor. These 6 routes were then measured against a range of technical and environmental criteria. This exercise identified 1 route within the revised central corridor and 1 route within the western corridor. The consultation seeks views on these 2 options. And the next 2 slides present the details of these options. So these maps are presented within the consultation brochure, and a more detailed mapping, a snippet of which is shown on the left-hand side of this slide, is available on the GCP website if you would like to look at specific sections in more detail. So beginning with the revised central option and taking this option from south to north, it starts at the Cambridgeshire Guided Busway to the west of the A14 underpass. The route continues north to Milton Road. It's proposed that buses will run on road along Milton Road and Butt Lane to serve Milton Park and Ride. Milton Road and Butt Lane between the route and the Park and Ride are proposed to be upgraded. This upgrade applies to both route options, and more detail on the upgrade is provided later in this presentation. From Butt Lane, the route continues north, crossing Landbeach Road and Waterbeach Road via signalised crossings. The route crosses Mere Way to the west of the A10. And at this point, the active travel infrastructure alongside the busway route would connect to Mere Way to allow users to cross the A10 via the active travel bridge being provided by Urban and Civic. The busway route continues north across the A10 via the Waterbeach Newtown Southern Access roundabout. Within Waterbeach Newtown itself, the route is proposed to run on dedicated public transport infrastructure to connect to the new Waterbeach station. Connections will also be possible through the Newtown to Cambridge Research Park and for journeys to continue north on the A10 towards Ely. The proposals within Waterbeach Newtown are consistent across both options, and the project team will continue to work with the Newtown developers to develop these designs further. So the western option at the southern end starts in the same location as the revised central option with a connection to the existing Cambridgeshire Guided Busway to the west of the A14 underpass. It crosses Milton Road via a signalised crossing, further west than the central option, and continues north to the west of Landbeach before crossing Cottenham Road and Green End via signalised crossings. To the east of Green End, the active travel infrastructure alongside the route would connect to Mere Way to allow users to cross the A10 via the active travel bridge. The busway route would continue east, cross the A10 via the Waterbeach Newtown Southern roundabout. Arrangements within the Newtown are the same as those presented for the revised central option. These next 2 slides provide a comparison of the 2 route options. In terms of journey time, the western route offers a quicker journey if services do not divert to Milton Park and Ride due to the directness of the route. Both routes are segregated from general traffic for the majority of their routes, and both cross the existing road network 4 times at signalised junctions. The signals will provide priority for buses along both corridors, helping to ensure reliable journeys. The estimated costs of both options are comparable, with the western route cost estimated slightly higher than the revised central route as a result of the additional upgrade to Milton Road and Butt Lane. In terms of journeys, both options are predicted to lead to a reduction of approximately 2,200 daily person trips by car in 2041. The revised central option is predicted to generate a higher level of bus and park and ride use, as well as active travel use. This is predominantly as a result of its proximity to existing settlements along the corridor, offering a greater connectivity for existing users of the corridor. This image shows a typical indicative cross-section of the busway. It applies to both options. The width of the active travel infrastructure along the corridor varies depending on the proximity to other active travel routes, including Mereway. Cross-sections are referred to on the detailed drawings on the GCP website to show where this active travel infrastructure varies along each corridor. The busway will be separated from the active travel route by a verge. The extent of the slope and drainage infrastructure either side of the route will vary depending on the location within the corridor. It is assumed that the busway will be optically guided, as shown by the road markings in the middle of each lane. Therefore, the infrastructure will not be the physical guidance that is used for the existing Cambridgeshire guided busway. This screenshot from our project animation shows a typical cross-section of the proposed upgrade to Butt Lane. The animation is available to view on the consultation website. The upgrade applies to both route options. The road will be widened to allow easier bus movements, and a widened shared use path on the southern side will provide improved journeys for active travel users. A verge will also separate pedestrians and cyclists from the carriageway. A new park and ride near Waterbeach would serve the Newtown, Waterbeach and Landbeach, as well as letting vehicles off the A10 earlier in their journey towards Cambridge. We've gone through a three-stage option identification process, which has culminated in 3 options being presented through this consultation for feedback. Step 1 consisted of the identification of a number of zones for a potential park and ride site. These were east of the A10, near or within Waterbeach Newtown, directly adjacent to the A10, between Cambridge Research Park and Waterbeach, and west of the A10, to the west of Green End and Cambridge Research Park. These 3 zones were put through a high-level assessment looking at the benefits and impacts of operating a park and ride site on those areas. The conclusion from step 1 was that the zone directly adjacent to the A10 was taken forward as the optimum zone. As part of step 2, we identified 6 sites, broadly the same size as Milton Park and Ride. They were identified within that zone adjacent to the A10, and they form the site long list. As part of step 3, the 6 sites were looked at in more detail, including greenbelt designation, flood risk, and transport access. From this, we've identified the top 3 sites, and these are the ones that we are asking for feedback on as part of the consultation. So these are the 3 sites that we're consulting on. Park and Ride option A is located to the east of the A10, to the north of Waterbeach Newtown. Park and Ride option B is located to the west of the A10 and Waterbeach Newtown and accessed off Green End. Park and Ride option C is located to the west of the A10, to the north of Denny End Road and the west of Waterbeach Newtown. All 3 options for Park and Ride could connect with the busway services, and sites B and C directly with the busway itself. We will ensure that the sites are accessible by active travel modes as well as vehicles. High-level access arrangements have been identified for each Park and Ride site for further consideration. For Park and Ride Site A, there are 2 potential access options. The first option is that buses and cars would access the site from a new roundabout off the A10. The second option is that buses would access the site from within Waterbeach Newtown and cars would access the site from a new roundabout on the A10. For Park and Ride Site B, there is 1 access option. Buses could access the site from the Waterbeach Newtown Southern Roundabout and cars could access the site from Green End. For Park and Ride Site C, there are two access options, the first of which is buses and cars could access the site from the Waterbeach Newtown Southern roundabout. The second option is that buses could access the site from the Waterbeach Newtown Southern roundabout and cars could access the site from the A10 at Denley End Road. We are seeking feedback on these options and their accesses to feed into future technical work. As the options for the Park and Ride sites are developed, we'll also be considering what facilities are included. We would like to hear feedback on these facilities and any others that you would like to see at the Park and Ride sites as part of this consultation. So in terms of next steps, following the consultation, we will analyse the responses and integrate them with the outcomes of ongoing technical work. We're aiming to submit the outline business case to the Greater Cambridge Partnership Executive Board later in 2023, along with a recommendation for the preferred option. Our current programme indicates a likely start of construction in late 2025 or early 2026. So that's a summary of the busway routes and park and ride options. David, I'll hand back to you.
Thanks. So I think we have quite low attendance looking at the figures here, Amy. So
Okay.
One gentleman seems to have dropped off. I think Melanie, you're our only participant at the moment. So I think we'll just unmute you, and then you can ask any questions that you have. So could we just unmute Melanie, please?
She just needs to unmute herself.
You need to unmute yourself your end as well, Melanie.
So I've just allowed Melanie's mic, so if she tries again now, see if it works. It's definitely unmuted our end. Okay. Are we happy if I make Melanie a presenter?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What we'll do, we'll upgrade you to presenter, Melanie, and then you.
Okay, right, that's working now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can see you and hear you, Melanie.
Yeah. Okay, well, first, Paul, thank you for your reply to my email. I haven't replied to your reply, but yeah, it was a bit of a problem. The original consultation was obviously flawed if 3 out of 4 of the routes were then subsequently rejected. We did go and have a look at the original route, which went through the allotments and past some properties in Waterbeach. And could see that it was a bit narrow, but it was actually still feasible. You know, I know you've rejected it. There was a huge petition, and I can appreciate you're unlikely to go back and revisit it, but it does seem that Waterbeach is missing out because they're losing their railway station and the busway doesn't actually come through Waterbeach. Whereas for Lambeach's point of view, if it avoided going in front of the Tide Barn but came through Waterbeach and then crossed the A10 and had a Lambeach stop at the south end of Lambeach and possibly one linked to Waterbeach Road, that could still possibly work. Anyway, that was just a comment that, you know, I've raised that before, so you know that I was wondering about revisiting that route. On the Park and Ride site, you put a lot of detail, or you put some details on both the detailed plans where they were both going to option C, Park and Ride site. Do you have the same level of detail for option A, which is the one north? Because that's not actually on the website, is it? And I think obviously having option A would avoid you getting traffic coming from Waterbeach Newtown as well as the traffic looking for the Park and Ride at the same time. You know, you've got you've got twice as much traffic as you need on that section of the A10 otherwise. So Park and Ride A probably makes more sense, but you haven't shown that as a detailed access, and I don't know how the costs compare. So it's not so much a question really, but just, well, the question was, have you got detailed plans and can you share them with, I don't know, the parish council or something? It doesn't have to be the world, but
Yes, we have got detailed plans for all three park and ride
Would you
sites.
have those at the Waterbeach in-person event on next week?
So just to clarify that, Amy, so I think by the detail, Melanie is talking about what we're presenting on the consultation. I thought we only had that detail because we needed one site to do the modelling work for.
So we've got more detailed plans of the access options for all three sites. The reason that site C is shown in terms on the plans on the website is because we needed to model an option for a park and ride site in the corridor, and that modelling needed to be based on a site at this stage. So that site is one that we've selected because it connects directly with the busway in that location, and that's the site that's costed at the moment. But we've got detailed plans of the access options for all three sites, which will be developed further at the next stage in terms of both local modelling and to develop the designs further.
Okay, but you won't necessarily have them on hang on, whenever it is Monday. Is it Monday night? Monday evening, yeah.
We
You
don't
won't
really,
necessarily have them
plan
on
to
Monday.
because we're not with the park and ride. We're not really at that stage yet. We're only at a stage where we're kind of initially discussing options as to location. So it's a little bit more high level at the moment. And I mean, we weren't even going to really show the access options for that part for C, but we had them anyway, so we just put them out there to give an example. So
well, I mean, you can see that works, but it's got the issue of having the extra traffic that comes further south than it needs to. You know, traffic coming down from the Ely direction could obviously be got off the road a bit sooner, which would, you know, from a Lambich point of view, I think people in the village would prefer that. I would think
I agree.
We're fairly unanimous on that one.
So that's an attribute of Site A, or something in the location of Site A, is that it takes the traffic off the A10.
Yeah.
But then the downside is that the park and ride service has to travel further, and it potentially has to travel. We don't know what the operator will do, but it potentially would have to travel through the new town, which would then perhaps slightly reduce its.
Well, presumably you're picking up residents from the new town at the same time. I mean, the new town is actually going to be huge. I mean, people on the right hand side, you know, the eastern side of the new town are going to drive to the park and ride. I mean, you know, it sounds, or they might not, because there might be, if there's a sufficient bus service, they won't. But in the early stages, when there's not that many residents and, you know, it's all building up, they're probably going to drive to the park and ride. You know, I don't know how, you know, it's not all there all at once. You know, you put in a great big thing and it takes years to develop.
So. I mean, it's only going to be half built by 2041, according to what we've seen so far. So you're right, it does take years to build.
Yeah.
The issue with the park and ride is that you want it to be kind of a bit of an express service, and that's how generally park and rides are run. So with option A, potential. The other issue of option A is it's close to Denny Abbey, which is a bit of a constraint.
Well, people have car parks next to, I don't know, Anglesey Abbey. I mean, all sorts of heritage sites have car parks. I mean, I'm not saying it's wonderful. I don't want it in front of the Tide Barn. So, you know, it's obviously,
Anyway, but at the moment, we don't really have a preferred option on park and ride. So this consultation is very much throwing the options out there and having this type of discussion and getting this type of feedback.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll get the feedback from Lambich people and others as to where they think it should be. Presumably other people will make the same comment. I mean,
obviously, option C, has the negative aspect of cars having to come further, and eventually, in the longer term, that will mean driving past the new town as you through that area, which in the longer term will I guess be slightly more congested, because you will have an increase in traffic and cars.
Yeah, because they won't let the new town traffic go through Waterbeach village, so they'll all end up going on that section.
Exactly. So
and you've got 11,000 homes or something.
So that's the kind of the downside of Site A, but then the plus side of Site A is it integrates really well with kind of Mereway, the active travel bridge from the new town.
No, Site C, you mean? The downside of Site C, and it's also it's another chunk of Lambich, farmland or whatever. But okay. Well, I get that, but you'll have to factor that in. The other I've got now. Second question is about the active travel route. If you found that people preferred the central route and you preferred it for whatever reason, the problem there maybe it works for buses, because obviously linking Milton Park and Ride to the busway is something that they've wanted to do for a while, because otherwise it can't take you to Cambridge North or anywhere else. But the active travel route, if you cycled to Milton Park and Ride, you're then going to possibly have to go 3 sides of a rectangle to get to your office in the science park, which really doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? You know, having to then go west and then down, and then depending where you are, if you're on the science, assuming on the science park, or northeast, you know, if you're in if they develop the northeast Cambridge site, then you've got to have a very safe crossing of the A10 there to get people through Milton on their bikes. You know, anyone who's cycling quickly will wonder what on earth they do when they get to the Park and Ride site, because they don't want to stop and do a dog leg and go through 3 sides of a rectangle. I mean, I need to say I'm not really a cyclist, but my son wouldn't, and other people, you know, somebody fast commuting wouldn't. I think so. You've got potential danger, you know, that you need to think about there.
No, I can see that point. Can understand that point, and we will. Depending on which route is chosen, we need to make an assessment of active travel based on the feedback from the consultation, and also based on kind of what eventually happens with Mirway and the Greenway.
Yeah, I mean, because it seems that Mirway is going ahead. You know, Urban and Civic, they're continuing with that. It's been slow, but they're getting there. And the main concern for Lambeach is the last bit when it goes through the village, where it's quite awkward. There's some dangerous corners, and you know. It's just more tricky. That obviously, if you had basically going up the Mirway and then finishing off the final bit, like where you've got your western route, would make a much safer cycle route, and would also be an attractive cycle route. I mean, you know, you've got to juggle this, and different people doing different things doesn't help, but it is an option to separate the bus and the cycle, I think. Just to consider that anyway, and I'm not saying I'm in favour or against, but it might be one way of giving cyclists a much more straightforward route in from the new development, if they can go across Cottenham Road as with your western route, and then join the Mirway, would be a perfectly reasonable option for cyclists.
Yeah, I agree. So at the moment, our position at the moment is that we have been told that we need to include a maintenance track next to the busway. So whatever happens, that
I wonder why you have to do that, because it's not a physical busway like the old style. The old style ones you can understand, because otherwise you get stuck if you go to repair a bus. But this one, if it's an optical one and it's basically a road, you'd think.
But at the moment, it's a program-wide specification. Amy, do you know any? Can you say any more on it or not? Is it linked to the TWA?
Yeah, it's linked to the TWA application. So that picture's kind of still evolving.
What's TWA?
So our consenting route that we have to go down to as part of the planning process to get approval for the scheme is the Transport and Works Act. And at the moment, that's a bit of an evolving picture for us in terms of the optical guidance. So it may well be that in the future that changes, but at the moment we've got to provide a maintenance track as part of that.
I mean, obviously, if an optical route is like a normal road, and you could make it, you know, maybe a foot wider each side to make sure that, you know, passing the buses, that if something's broken down, you know, it's perfectly reasonable for another vehicle to rescue the bus if it's a proper road, and then you don't need the maintenance. I'm just saying, you know, if you were thinking of separating the active travel from the bus route for part of the route, that would be feasible. I mean, that needs more work. Well, it's probably all right. Consultants.
From my point of view, we would, as Amy says, this is evolving. Our current spec, we have to follow what our current spec is, because we can't anticipate exactly what will happen with the consenting route. In terms of like a pragmatic result is one that you kind of, where you cater for all of the active travel that you require, and you don't build too much extra. So, because obviously the more we build, the more expensive the project becomes. And if we are building the maintenance track just for the sake of it, it's not really.
Well, it's not just the cost of the project. It's the fact that particularly if you went in front of the Tithe Barn, you're cutting. I mean, one of the farmers, you know, it's their livelihood, and you're cutting.
Yeah, you're also taking more land
out of the field, and you know that it's
So
know,
we will
some-
take those. What I'm saying is that we will make those considerations at the next stage of the design. But at the moment, the feedback is all really useful. So this consultation is setting out kind of what the maximum we think that we need to, or sorry, what the minimum is at the moment that we need to provide. And the consultation will help us kind of shape exactly what, you know, what we recommend to the board and what we consider at the next stage of the project as well.
Yeah, well, that's good, as long as, you know, we get our comments forward and then you can take them into consideration. That's all we can ask, really. But, you know, that's just a thought. The next thing is bus stops. If you went for option C, even if it was just the busway, not the cycleway, but or both, how do you avoid parking issues in Landbeach? You know, say you have a bus stop on Waterbeach Road, and I think the bus stop plan is that you have a couple of disabled parking spaces and you have a turning circle for a bus, which presumably you'd have to do from Waterbeach, because otherwise they haven't got, you know, the bus service from Waterbeach might want to link up to that, or anywhere else, but presumably you have a bus drop off. But how do you stop people driving from I don't know, Cottenham, say, and parking in all the way down Waterbeach Road, and making it very difficult for people you know, who live there or passing, you know, that's a consideration. I mean, just something to think about. So
Yeah.
and possibly the same at the south end of Landbeach, though I should think less so, because I imagine it would be more people would get on at the earlier one, but it's just anticipating how people might behave.
So one idea that someone said is that, and you could do this for site C quite easily, is that you could potentially create a vehicular access from Green End to site C. I don't know if the feasibility of that. It's just
I think you mean site B. I think you mean the one next to Emmaus, don't you?
No, but site C as well. You could potentially. So this is only an idea that someone said to me. It's not. I haven't checked it out, or we haven't done any design work. But someone has said. Someone made the comment that perhaps with site C you could link from Green End, and that would mitigate. You know, that would create an easy access for people living in Cottenham and help mitigate parking issues in Landbeach.
Yeah, that might be a good idea, actually, because if anyone was wanting to hop on from Cottenham, I mean, say, because if they put the congestion charging so that you can't go to Cambridge North without paying twice, you know, paying your congestion charge and your £8 a day parking, you know, then you're paying £13 to park, and people will, you know, if they were doing it regularly, would think twice about doing that. So if they could park for free, presumably the park and ride will be free, will it, parking?
Currently is, so I would just,
yeah,
you know, we would
I mean,
follow
they'd still have to pay
model
to get from the park and ride to Cambridge North, but if park and ride was free and then it was £2 to get to Cambridge North, that's a lot better than paying £13 to you know, whatever it is, 5 + 8 or whatever. So yeah, I mean,
from Cottenham, yeah, site B would also work in that respect. Site A slightly less so, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that wouldn't work so well. I agree. From Cottenham. I mean, I don't know how much they'd use it. Apparently, Cottenham has a very good bus service, but you know, people do cut through Landbeach, so it might have a good bus service, but people do. There's quite a lot of rat running that we'd obviously like to stop, and depending where they're going.
Cottenham doesn't have a good bus service. It has a regular bus service, but the bus service weaves all around Histon, so it takes nearly an hour to get into Cambridge.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, that's the thing with the Western route. Of course, Cottenham, they could have a bus that joined off the Cottenham Road.
Exactly, yeah.
But the downside of the Western route is it doesn't. I mean, the Landbeach residents are a bit divided. The downside of the Western route is that it's almost impossible to have a bus stop that's A, of any use to residents, and B, has a safe access. I mean, off you know, the Cockfen Lane, Aikman Street, you know, past the barns there. I mean, that's just a non-starter, I think. You know, it makes it even more dangerous if you're crossing the Mereway. I mean, I think you'd have to forget that one. I don't think you could have a bus stop on Cottenham Road, maybe. Yeah, that would be the safest place to have it, would be Cottenham Road, but obviously that wouldn't help Landbeach residents.
So with site A, then sorry, with the Western option, the Western busway option, and that bus stop location, I think one of the ideas we would have would be to run Mereway, divert Mereway along the busway, and then relink to the, you know, to Mereway at some point where it's suitable. So therefore, you would kind of avoid what you've just said, the kind of having to cross Mere Way.
You'd divert, you'd come off the Mere Way route a bit sooner. You wouldn't get to that corner.
Well, I don't exactly know. We'd look to avoid that section maybe. I don't know.
That corner, which is, it's a sort of right-angled corner, which is quite blind, and there's a lot of farm vehicles as well going down there. It won't just be cyclists, but.
Well, you would avoid it at least for those who are joining Mere Way at Waterbeach New Town. Obviously, if you live in Landbeach and you want to join it, you have to navigate. If it was the western option, you would have to.
I'm just saying the bus stop. It would work for people maybe on foot or cycle, but for vehicles, I don't think you could have a bus stop there. It would be causing problems, I think.
We would have to upgrade that lane. Let's say that.
And logistically, that's quite tricky. Well, obviously you can do your modelling. I don't know, but I think it would be difficult, and you'd be getting a lot of traffic going through the centre of Landbeach to go there, which I think would be very undesirable. I can't see that bus stop would be a good idea. I think it'd be better to have one, either to have the bus stop on Cottenham Road or an access from Cottenham Road to that one, which is only accessed on foot or cycle. You could have an access coming down from Cottenham Road to a bus stop which Landbeach people can get to on foot or cycle, but it's obviously quite a long way from the centre. Anyway, it's a thought. I guess the other main anxiety that people in Landbeach will have is the A10. Is that if you're planning for a wide route, say you prefer the option C, which has problems for active travel, but if you were thinking of that, it's almost as wide as a dual carriageway, and that people would be anxious and thinking, are they just going to suddenly change their minds and put a dual carriageway there, which would be a big no for the village. Obviously because it's actually through the middle of the village. I mean, you don't imply that. People say it's to the east of Landbeach, but it's actually through Landbeach parish and cuts off.
Yeah, we know that.
The other.
That's what we always say now, because we've been well educated by the local councillor.
Yeah, it goes through the village, and obviously it's not terminal if it's just a busway, but the A10 really is. I really think if anyone wanted to put a dual carriageway there, they'd have to contend with a lot of people sitting in the road, because it really would be terrible for the village to have a dual carriageway brought closer. The whole point of the A10 was that it was a bypass for Landbeach originally. So
the current position on the A10 is that the project team looking at it are evaluating a lower cost and lower impact option. They've been told to do that by government, and that's what they're doing. So I think there's a committee paper actually that sets out the difficulties of dualling, especially in the current kind of environment, and
I think there'd be an awful lot of
environmental issues and all of that
national
kind of stuff, climate change
as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So the dualling options are still on the table, but they're looking less likely from an outside view. And from a view that's
obviously junction improvements are quite important. I mean, the junction between Landbeach and Waterbeach, the slap-up junction, that's quite a dangerous junction, and obviously the Milton one is definitely going to be upgraded. That's also a dangerous junction. Quite a lot of accidents at both those junctions, really.
So anyway, I think the dualling issue is probably less. Well, the worry for Landbeach is diminishing. And the other thing I'd say is if we went ahead with the revised central option, I think that would kind of get in the way of any dualling. So that might be an inhibitor to using that route in the future if dualling ever did happen.
But then we don't want to have
but I'm
the dual carriageway one side of the village and the busway the other side. So, through the middle, but the other side of the historic middle part of it.
Just let David cut in, because I think.
No, I was just going to say also, Melanie, you talked about, and I think I'm right in the Transport and Works Act that we apply for to do the busway. As a busway, so you couldn't then turn it into a road without a significant. You can't just say do all of this. Do the Transport Works Act for busway, and at the last moment change it to a road.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's sort of comforting in a way, because
a number of people have asked that at the event. So I just wanted. Melanie, have you got any more questions? I noticed that another person has joined the meeting, so.
No, I think that's probably the end of my questions. So if anyone else has come, you can turn me off again and.
You can stay on, Melanie. It's fine.
Yeah, stay on. That's fine. Sue, hello. I see you've joined our meeting. You've missed the presentation, but I was wondering, did you have any questions? If you want to, we can unmute you and you can ask your questions, or.
Just upgrade to presenter.
Okay. Right, let me have a look how we do that.
Sue just needs to unmute.
So if you unmute yourself your end, you should be able to ask questions. I can introduce people if you once you've asked your question, if you wanted to ask a question. So we've unmuted you this end. You have to unmute yourself on your own computer if you want to ask a question. Or if you don't wish to, you can put something in the chat if you want to do that, Sue. Okay. Okay, we can't hear you at the moment because you need to unmute yourself your end, or if you're struggling with that and you want to ask a question via the chat, please do that. As I say, we've done the presentation. The presentation will be on our YouTube site, so if you want to go back and have a look at it, because it was earlier on in the meeting. And we do have 2 upcoming meetings, in-person meetings, which is at Waterbeach Baptist Church on Monday, and then a following one in Milton the following week.
Ellie, did you attend the Landbeach one? I can't remember. I don't know if I can't remember speaking to you.
No, sorry, I didn't. We were away. I mean, it was
All
very
right.
short notice. It was, about 10 days, and we were away that week. So unfortunately, that's why I missed it. Yeah. But was it quite well attended?
Yeah,
Yes.
it was. There was it 60, 70, 80 people? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah, well, there was well over 60 people there. So.
Oh, yeah. Good. So probably most people are going to the in-person events, I guess.
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to offer a mix.
I mean, we'll probably come to the one on Monday as well, just to sort of hear what people from Waterbeach are saying, really. But get a feeling for it.
Okay. Okay, I can't see anything in the chat, and we can't hear you. So if you are indeed wanted to ask a question, so I'm not really sure what to do. We've kind of concluded everything now, Paul. I think if Melanie's asked all the questions.
Yeah, I think so.
I can't see a question from Sue. So if you're struggling with IT and you want to ask us a question, please do email us and we'll answer it that way. Or we've got a meeting at Waterbeach Baptist Church in the evening on next Monday, where you'll be able to come along in person and ask a question. I can't see anything in the chat. And I can't see you able to speak. Paul, I think we've reached the end of the line then. If Melanie's exhausted and Sue.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your answers. I'll go away now, and you'll probably wind up the meeting. But thanks anyway. Cheers.
Okay.
Thanks, Melanie.
Thanks, Melanie.
Thanks, Melanie. Okay. Can't see anybody typing or anything. So.
David, happy for you to end the recording now. And
okay, fine. All right. Well, I think Sue, we can't hear you and we can't see the thing. If you've got a question, please. Yeah, she's left the meeting now. So I think the meeting is now ended. So.